Welcome to Apocalypse Apocrypha. I'm your host, JJ Shetty, and this is the podcast where I discuss all things post-apocalyptic. Welcome to episode 8, attempt number 2. I tried earlier last week, but everyone in my house was sick, including me, and I just happened to be given a large piece of cake by my landlord's daughter. Say what you will about the Germans, but they know how to bake, and I was not quite up to snuff, so here we are for try 2. This is going to be a bit of a rambly recap bottle episode. It's not because I haven't read another book yet, even though I haven't. It's because I need to do some traveling soon, and so I need to get a few episodes, behind me so I can edit and release on the go. Okay, time for an update before we get into the meat and potatoes. The Prepper Fiction draft has been finished, finalized, and sent off. It's been a little over a month now, and I haven't heard much beyond the fact that they're going through it. That's pretty standard for a text this size. During this period of waiting, I realized that trying to get a book published with a Prepper Fiction publisher while having a podcast where I shit all over Prepper Fiction, probably not the smartest idea in the world. But hey, we we do these things not because they are easy, as they say. I have been making a serious dent in my post-apocalyptic random tables book. I finished the biome name and description generators, as well as animals by biome generators as well. Now, that may sound like a bunch of nonsense to you, unless you're a pen and paper player, but yeah, it's pretty exciting if you know what's going on. Speaking of pen and paper, I actually started playing Atomic Shadows in my downtime, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's a hack of Shadow Dark. It's been a while since I've sort of played in a role-playing game. I've run a few games over the past few years, just for like various classes I've been teaching here and there, but my main group sort of disbanded about 15 years ago, so yeah, it's just been a long time of collecting books and PDFs without actually playing, so yeah, solo play is a lot different, but it works well for me here. I'm on the other side of the world with no real friends. God, that sounds sad. But yeah, so I can just do it on my own, which is good, but more importantly, it's been useful to actually put into use the tables from my random tables book, because I can sort of see what's missing, like what works, what doesn't. So I'm putting it through a crash course test drive, so to speak. I finally got to sit down and watch 28 Years Later, and I really enjoyed it. I heard that it didn't do that well, but I think that's because people were expecting like a generic zombie flick, and that's never really what this series was. Like, if you think about it, we've had, The Walking Dead and its, million spin-offs. And there's a bunch of other zombie shows that have come out, but I never really watched them. But like, we've had a lot of zombie content since 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later came out. And I feel that sort of shifted the genre a bit, because yeah, this feels much more like the original than even the sequel. One thing that did sort of, not annoy, but I sort of found it a bit interesting, is that, yeah, it's not even a retcon. It's just the fact that in the sequel, the very end slide sort of shows that the virus makes its way to France, and so the idea is that the virus is now in Europe and it's going to spread around the world. But this movie opens with the fact that it's just stopped. Like, they just write it off like, yeah, no, that didn't happen. Well, it did, but doesn't matter. And then it just keeps going. Which does sort of set up an interesting dynamic where, like, the rest of the world continues to develop without England, or, sorry, the UK as a whole. But then, like, is it even really an apocalypse at that point? That's even smaller in terms of scale than like an American apocalypse. I don't think it qualifies anymore. Yeah, it's still a really great movie. If you haven't seen it and you like these sort of things, yeah, definitely go check it out. But yeah, overall I did like the film. Okay, and weirdly enough, I got a random book review on my last book, The Land of Long Shadows. And it's kind of weird because like I haven't been advertising it or anything. It's just sort of been sitting there because I don't really sort of know how to handle the advertising, because it just can't sort of be pigeonholed into like one sort of genre. It was a weird review because the guy called it very dark and very deranged, which, it is. So I sort of got a bit chuffed by that. But like, this guy's just like a complete normie. He didn't get it at all. Like, he didn't understand any of it. But he thought it was so imaginative and so well written that he gave it 4 stars. He hated it, but he still gave it 4 stars. So like, respect to that guy. I appreciate it, man. Okay, so this is more of an FYI than an update. It was pointed out to me on a friend's podcast that I use the term interesting in an unorthodox way. I thought it was just sort of common knowledge how I was using it, but apparently it's not. There's this old curse where someone will say, "May you live in interesting times," which basically means, I hope your life is full of chaos and turmoil. Like, I hope you never get a good night's sleep, sort of thing. Like, it's not a nice thing to wish upon someone. You want like a nice, easy, cruisy life with no surprises. So if I say something is interesting, just sort of picture me, even though you haven't seen me yet, just sort of picture me doing like, what is it, the finger quote thing. Because like interesting is like, that's not good. Or like, that's like worth paying attention to because that's probably something else. Yeah, so interesting doesn't mean good in my context. The more you know. Okay, so this is the heart of this episode. If you've got to pick and choose how much you listen to, this is the part you listen to, and then you can just leave afterwards if you want. Okay, so this is what I've learned so far from the 5 books I've read in the prepper fiction genre. So, for tropes that have appeared in all 5 books, we've got dogs. Okay? Sounds silly, I know, but dogs are a judge of character. They're proof that the person you're dealing with is trustworthy, reliable, but most importantly, they're moral. Okay? How someone treats a dog and how someone deals with dogs, that's a good sort of representation of who they are in the story. Next, we have guns. Guns have been in all 5 books. Okay? Guns need to be viewed as a trustworthy and reliable means to solve problems. You would never have a prepper character disparage guns or owning guns. It's only going to be positive when it comes to firearms, especially after the world ends or America gets hit by an EMP. Finally, as has appeared in all 5 books, strong and independent women. Now, this is probably due to the fact that this genre has a readership that is mostly comprised of women. Last I heard, it was something around 60%. But yeah, all of these books need to have a strong, independent woman that the sort of core audience can sort of latch onto and, vicariously live through, I guess. Don't be talking down to the women if you want to write one of these. Okay, so the following tropes have appeared in 4 of the 5 books I've read so far. We have the early event. Most of the apocalyptic events in these stories happen very early in the story itself. There's not a lot of build-up or sort of warm-up to sort of get to know the characters. You sort of meet them and then they're dumped into the end of the world straight away. We don't sort of get a chance to really familiarize ourselves with them. I could argue the pros and cons of that, but, that sort of seems to be what the genre is going for. We have the EM-proof vehicle. Now, a lot of these characters have vehicles that can withstand an electromagnetic pulse or a coronal mass ejection. So, as strange as that may seem in the year 2025, because I think it's some sort of part, or just the electronic computerized parts in general. I'm not a car guy, don't come at me. I'm pretty sure like any car built after like 76 or something, that there's some year in the 70s, like any car after that is going to get fried. So the further we get along, the harder it is going to be for these characters to just have one of these cars that just can withstand an EMP, just because like, who has a car that's like 50 years old at this point? But yeah, most of these stories have some sort of car that can survive an EMP. Finally, we have the military characters. Most of these stories have characters that have some sort of military service behind them. Now, they're not in the military, typically, because if you're in the military, you're still part of the military industrial complex. You're still part of the system, so you're not really independent enough to be off doing your own thing yet. But if you have the background and the training, but also being out of the military, that sort of puts you on a bit of a different foot. Like, you've got the skills, but you've also got the ability to think for yourself. There's a lot of those sorts of characters. Now, I've also done some research of my own on the various prepper forums, and that last one is actually one that people are getting a bit sick of. Now, this is just me asking random people. It's not obviously like, a thoroughly researched academic paper here with like thousands of people answering questions, but it's just a vibe I'm getting from like more than a few people that they're getting a bit sick of like military or police characters. They're looking more for just everyday people. Like the everyday prepper wants to see themselves, surviving these things. They don't want to have to put themselves in the shoes of like, G.I. Joe, SAS, survivalist king or whatever. They want to see everyday people. But, mileage may vary on that one. Okay, the following tropes have been in 3 books out of the 5 I've read so far. So, not essential, but they're there. So, we have prepper tips. If there was one that I thought would be more prevalent in the genre, it's this. Because this is, what I heard about all the time when people would tell me about like what makes good prepper fiction. It's the prepper tips. But yeah, so far it's only 3 out of 5. I may have just lucked out, but who knows. People tend to want survival tips presented through the fictional narrative. They sort of want them seamlessly put into the story, and so they can learn something while they're reading a story. Now, some stories do it well. Some do not do it well. All I'm saying is, if you are going to start writing a prepper story and you do want to include some prepper tips, please, for the love of God, find a way to insert them into the story seamlessly. Don't just have a character like stop and randomly give a tip for no bloody reason. Like, this isn't the Truman Show, okay? People don't just turn to the camera. Ugh. Okay, another one is the overt politics. Now, again, it's only 3 out of 5, but a lot of these books do tend to have characters that are very right-leaning and they're very vocal about it. Now, I'm guessing that's represented by the audience, but there's probably some left-leaning preppers as well, especially after COVID. Seriously. If you've got like 5 minutes and you're bored, go check out what COVID conscious is. Oh, man, that fried some people's brains. Anyway, back on track. There's a very overt politics in the genre. Like, people know what side they're on. They know what side the majority of their audience is on, and they cater to it to a T. Okay, the next one is prep checks. Now, this is what I'm calling when a character stops, unpacks their get-out-of-dodge bag or their go bag or whatever they want to call it. They unpack everything, they sort of catalog it all, and then repack it in a better, more, efficient manner. This is basically just prepper porn. Just this is what they're here for. Anyway, another one is no real government response. In a lot of these stories, the government doesn't really respond, or it either chooses not to or it can't respond. Now, I feel this is happening because you can't really have like preppers going off and doing their own thing if the establishment is still there. Take like America, for example. Like if there's a big EMP, the prepper's like, all right, here's my time to shine. And then the government's there with like cops and military like, no, it's cool, we got it. You're like, oh, okay. Well, I still have to get home. Oh, we have a bus, you can take that. Oh, okay, fine. Like, it doesn't make a story. So you sort of need that swept aside just so it's not a real issue, because otherwise the government's just going to handle it. So also, yeah, these people want to see, the government failing. So that's another big part of it. And finally, we have poor people are the real threat. So I'll get into this a bit more later, but for these people who are living in just general suburbia, it's not the big threat that decimated the country. It's the poor people who don't have resources and didn't prepare that are in close proximity to you that are now the real threat. You're not worried about enemy soldiers. You're worried about, the poor people living in like council housing down the road. Like, what are they going to do for food? Where are they going to go when they get desperate? That's the prepper's real threat, which is actually sort of interesting. I may have brought this up before. I don't know. I talk a lot on this thing, but it sort of seems like if you take it from like the Christian worldview, or like if you, as they say these days, if you look at it through a Christian lens, anyway, if you do that thing, it's not like the outside people that are the real threat. It's the sort of people in your own community that aren't in line with you. They're the ones who are like your real threat. And it's not just like proximity. It's just the fact that like, they might sway opinion. They might turn things against you. Or maybe they're just like ridiculing you the whole time. And so like, they're the ones who like need to be cast as the bad guys when things kick off. But yeah, poor people are the real threat. Those who didn't prepare. Demonize them. That always works well. Okay, so the following tropes have appeared in 2 books. They are present, but by no means essential to a good prepper story. So the first one is characters needing to get home. So in some of these stories, you have one character who is sort of at home when the event kicks off, and their role is to sort of like batten down the hatches and prepare, because things are going to get bad for them, while the other character makes their way home. So if you've got 2 characters, like a husband and wife, that sort of seems to be the general sort of gist here. Again, I've only read 5 books. It could be different elsewhere. A good husband and wife duo sort of has them teaming up, each taking one wing of the narrative. The next one is that preppers will be the ones to rebuild civilization. There's this sense that they know the world has ended, or at least America has ended, and that they're going to be the ones to get through it, but then they're also going to be the ones who will rebuild afterwards. They're not just going to survive, they're going to rebuild civilization. Like, civilization as a whole is in their hands, and they sort of have to carry the torch through the dark time until the time that follows, and they're going to be the one who rebuilds. Of course, it's going to be in their image, but hey, that's a problem for another day. We have the Plutonic harem, so this one is sort of a weird situation. I don't know if this is because it's aimed at women or for the men, but it sort of seems like a lot of the male characters tend to bring in all these young, nubile women and they look after them. They don't do anything with them. I can't tell if it's a sort of situation where, like, I could totally bang this chick if I wanted to, but I don't because I'm a good man. But I could if I wanted to. I've encountered that in real life. Oh, that was funny. Anyway, yeah, so there's been two situations where, like, a guy has got a bunch of women living with him. I'm actually interested to see if this is, like, a real thing in the genre. Like, oh god, please let it be a thing. That'll be funny. Okay, the next one is Christian overtones. Now, in the past, I foolishly made the comment that I wasn't sure how these books could continue the sort of narrative that, like, Christians were sort of under threat because Trump had won and, like, there'd been, like, this hardcore swing to the right and how, like, right-wing conservative values were ascendant once more. But, yeah, recent events, yeah, let's just say there's been a turning at this point in time, if you get my drift. Not making a joke about it. I think it was horrible. But, yeah, the aftermath of that has just been something crazy. So, yeah, they can definitely continue with this whole sort of, like, we're under threat narrative. So, yeah, don't worry about that anymore. I was completely wrong about that. The next one is foreigners as orcs. Now, I don't know if it's just because they're, like, American or Christian or conservative, but there is this thing where it sort of seems to be like some of these books view foreigners as just, like, raging, rampaging orcs. They're just, like, uncivilized threats who just raid and, like, nip at the edges of, like, civilization. And they're just waiting for things to fall apart so they can sort of have their time to run rampant. Yeah, I want to see if that sort of plays a bigger role in it, but we'll see. And the last one is bureaucrats bad. Yeah, I get the vibe that, like, most of the people reading these stories are, like, honest, hardworking, sort of blue-collar people, and they don't sort of have a lot of time for that sort of, like, white-collar desk jockey. Like, they just don't respect them. They don't like them. They probably get screwed around by them more often than not. They can represent big business. They probably more likely represent the government, even more so than, like, the military, frontline soldier aspect, because, like, at least there's, like, the honor of service there. A bureaucrat still works for the government, but, like, they're this faceless, non-threat environment drone. They're nothing, so, like, I can see why they don't like bureaucrats. The next one is preppers are good, unprepared are bad. This is just sort of something I noticed, but, like, in a weird way, preppers are sort of precluded from becoming raiders in the post-apocalyptic world. So they might do some, like, light looting here and there, but they're never forced into it wholesale as, like, a method of survival. So there's this whole aspect of, like, post-apocalyptic fiction that isn't open to preppers just because, like, of who they are. If you think about Joel from The Last of Us, Joel and Tommy were hunters for a while. They had to do that in order to survive. Like, Joel is not a good guy. Like, he's done some bad stuff. But, like, preppers don't have that option open to them. Because if they're forced to raid, then they weren't prepared. And, like, in a weird sort of way, they sort of have to always be prepared, but also, like, morally upright. Like, I don't know, maybe a character in a prepper story does, like, some raiding in, like, a later book. Again, I've only read, like, book 1 so far. But, like, so far, I haven't seen these sort of characters forced into it. So I just think that's sort of, like, narratively limiting. But, that's just me. The next one is preppers are proven right. Yeah, it's only appeared in 2 books. I figured it would have been more, but hey, 2's not bad. Preppers seem to revel in the fact that they are correct. Like, they were wrong 99% of the time, but that one night where things go bad, they're going to revel in it. Another one is the useless son and useful daughter. Now, I don't know if this is because of the female audience percentage, but yeah, a lot of the sons in these books tend to be, like, more useless, and it's the daughters who sort of picked up and followed the prepper lead. Now, it could be because, like, a lot of sons have become, like, a lot of men in general in the past few decades have been a bit, like, useless compared to, like, previous generations. It could be leaning into that. The issue for me is that you can't have a prepper, like a male prepper character, have a son that is forever useless, because that would mean he failed as a father. So I'm sort of predicting that most of these useless sons will be tested and then they'll prove themselves through the course of the apocalypse. And then that will sort of feed back as, like, proving the father was right all along about his son, sort of thing. But I guess I'll wait and see. Okay, so these are the stragglers. These are tropes that have only appeared in 1 book, but I'm predicting will appear in more than 1 book. So take these with a grain of salt. Name-dropping items. Now, I've heard this is a bigger part of the genre than I've just discovered so far, so that's why I put it here. The 1 book I found, like, they were, like, very, very specific about items and their names. So, like, you can go and buy those items. Like, it's a shopping list. Can't trust governments or institutions. I sort of feel like that goes hand in hand with the lack of government response and not trusting bureaucrats. So I feel like that's going to be a more integral part of the genre. Government as the enemy. So in these stories, the preppers aren't just people who survive the end of the world. They're people who need the old world to fail. Their entire way of life is contingent on the fact that the current system will fail. So it stands to reason that the leaders and the operators of the current system would be cast as the enemy. Maybe there's some like splinter cell of like a government that sort of comes back and like they're the trustworthy ones. But yeah, I get the vibe that like the current government, if it ever does try to come back in any of these stories, is probably going to be seen as like, corrupt and evil and like just trying to maintain power like after they've failed. So, but again, I'm only 5 books in, all book ones. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Salesmen bad. For the same reason as bureaucrats and government workers, they just don't like salesmen. They're too good at talking. Like, you just don't trust them. So, yeah, I feel like that's probably another one, if it plays a role at all. It fit the mold. And the last one is technology will fail. So that's a big part of this prepper sort of movement. It's that just like the government system will fail, technology will fail. So there's this weird thing where like the more advanced your society is, the greater the distance you have to fall. So if you think like if an EMP hit in the 1800s, how many people would even notice? Not many. Now, if an EMP hit in like the year 1900, some people would notice. Like that's going to do some damage. Like not as much as now, but if an EMP or like a coronal mass ejection hit in the year 2200 or something, we're going to have like a lot of electronics. Like that's going to wipe out a lot. And our fall back to sort of the industrial era level of technology, that's going to be a long fall. So technology failing seems to be an aspect that is baked into the genre. It's just a matter of if it will play a pivotal role in the narrative of that particular book. Okay, so that's it. That's everything I've learned from reading 5 prepper fiction books. If you just wanted the main actionable content, then that's all there is. There'll be more later on, come back then. The rest is just going to be me ranting, somewhat focused, about writing and prepper fiction, and just some housekeeping stuff. So if that's not your jam, you can sort of see yourselves out. Bye. Okay, they're gone. Cool. Fuck those guys. Let's go to the fun part. Okay, so we're going to have a discussion about my methods of analysis. So some of these breakdowns have come across as a bit mocking or harsh, and I would like to address that. So I am a nitpicky asshole, but I'm not doing it to be a dick. I'm doing it because I want better stories. Okay? So I sort of get where like some of the comments have been coming from, but I'm not doing it to be a dick. I just genuinely want better stories. If some author out there can like listen to my podcast and be like, huh, okay, that makes sense. I won't do that. I'm like, okay, cool. That book might be like 1% better. We all win. That's sort of what I'm hoping for with this. And I'm hoping to learn as well. So, 2 birds, 1 stone. That's how I'm sort of approaching this. In saying all that though, I don't want this podcast to turn into like a sort of cinema sins type deal where it's just some guy ripping on other people's works for clicks. Like, not that I'm making bank or anything, but CinemaSins, he's got like 9 million subs. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, people really vibe with negativity, but that's not what I'm here for. So the main thing is, I'm not a critic. I'm not tearing these books apart to be mean or to let you know if you should go read them or not. You go do whatever you want. I'm more of a developmental editor. I'm pointing out all the things that don't make sense, the inconsistencies, the weak points, and all the good stuff as well. So I've done this for a bunch of people already, like out in the real world. But the idea is that you sort of give your book or your manuscript to someone and they sort of stress test it before it gets to market. Because like once your book is out there, however many people read it, that's the number of people that are going to read it. And they'll all find something wrong with it. So the idea is you give it to someone before release, they'll sort of go through it and like find the weak points and sort of you can go back and fix them. The issue here is that I'm doing these for novels that are already out on the market and they're already successful. So no one's going to come back and fix these books. It's still being a developmental editor. It's just for me and for you listening because I'm doing this for the public as well, remember? Oh, God. Okay, so first off, a point in my corner is the fact that I've got my own work out there. Like, I've got some skin in the game. You can go check out my work and tear it apart to your heart's content. Honestly, please do. I would love to learn my weak points, and I'd love the reviews. Second, I'm deconstructing these stories so I can find the common elements and figure out what to incorporate into my own work, like the tropes, as people, call it. I'm just doing it publicly. And I mean, honestly, if they'd just given me the tropes when I asked them on the many, many prepper fiction post-apocalyptic forums, if they'd just given me the tropes when I asked, I wouldn't have to do this. But here we are. So I don't feel that bad about this part. Third, I am aware that I come across as very critical, but I do try and make a point of pointing out the things that I like in each of these books. So, as an example, I thought Bear's relationship with Trent in Broken World was really good. And the delivery of the prepper tips in Edge of Collapse, that was really, really well done. Now, we may have an instance where like the entire book is trash and I hate it and I can't find anything nice to say about it. You know, that happens sometimes. Sometimes a book is bad, but I try. Okay, I do try and find something nice or something that is done well. Fourth, I am making jokes and trying to have some fun while I'm doing this, you know, because you gotta laugh to stop yourself from crying, you know. But I think the key thing here is that it's not like I'm punching down here. These books are all wildly successful in the genre. And I mean, who am I? I'm just some guy who hasn't been financially successful while they all have been. If anything, I'm trying to learn from them so I can sell out more effectively. Like, I've been very clear about that. I'm trying to learn from them. So, you know, this podcast is just a way for me to, you know, ensure some public accountability for all that. At least, you know, those are the reasons I tell myself while I'm standing there brooding in the shower. So, in saying all of that, I don't think these books are necessarily the best that these authors can produce. Because my last book, The Land of Long Shadows, that took me 4 years to research and write. And like, I think it shows. Even the guy who hated it gave it 4 stars. Like, that's pretty good. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. There's always room for improvement. But I can honestly hold that up and confidently say that that book represents me. Very dark, very demented. But yeah, it's quality. I can stand by it. But the prepper book that I just finished, like, I spammed that out in my spare time. Like, I was like 2,000 words a day, just get it done. Go, 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 go. C minus. It's good enough. Like, it's got it done, handed it in. Like, sure, I went back, I tried to fix it up like here and there, like, you know, add in some subtext, add in some little clues and hints and stuff. But, you know, it's so far from my best work that it's not even relatable. Which is actually sort of a concerning point for me. I may have said this in another episode or another podcast. I don't know. I've been doing a few lately. This is actually a very concerning point for me because this project is kind of a lose-lose situation for me. Because if it fails, then I've wasted a lot of time like writing that and I did all that writing for nothing. But if it succeeds, then that's the project of mine that succeeds first. That's kind of concerning. Like, I don't like that. Yes, I want some money, but I don't like the fact that that's the project that I found success with first. So yeah, I'm having some struggling times with that concept. But that sort of does seem to be the market these days, at least the indie side of the market. You have to open yourself up to audience capture if you want to find success. Which, if you think about it, it is sort of concerning for the modern story market. How many great writers are focused on writing quantity rather than quality? Because that's what the market expects. So the modern content market, whether it's like streaming, films, music, ebooks, they're all just serving slop. Like, if you think about it, like, most of us have some sort of knowledge of Netflix. Their entire strategy is just serving slop. They don't want films that like you stop and start, like might not agree with. Like, they want films that you just leave running in the background. Like, that's their entire model. So the issue here is that it's rut food. That's what I call it anyway. Like, for anyone who's been stuck on a rut before, you know that it's not dangerous because it's uncomfortable or boring, but because it's just good enough to tolerate. So like, as an aside, World of Warcraft was my rut. I got stuck there for a while back in the day. I didn't need to go out clubbing. I didn't need to go see friends. I could just stay and play World of Warcraft. It was fun. I liked raiding and getting gear. Anyway, that sort of seems to be what the indie market is these days. It's books that are just good enough. So the authors who are writing these books, they've got constraints that we don't know about. And no artistic project is ever created under ideal circumstances. So maybe it's like time constraints, or like audience expectations, or even publisher demands. Even when you're an indie, you're not always in 100% control. As an example, think of the crappy CGI in a lot of the recent Marvel films, or the shoddy de-aging in the Obi-Wan series. It's not that the artists on staff lacked the capability or the technology. It's because the will or the budget was lacking. What was released was deemed good enough. Some executives saw the quality, and was like, yeah, whatever, that's good enough. Like, everyone knew it was bad, but they just Who cares? Just send it out, whatever, it doesn't matter. So that's sort of where we're at. So this is what I've sort of been thinking about for a while now in relation to this. I did a university paper on this. So yeah, I've put some thought into it. I could be wrong. I'm always open to being wrong. There are two concepts in the indie scene that I think are to blame for this, and they are the minimal viable product and right to market. So they're very, very good if you just want to write slop and get it out hard and fast and give a market exactly what it wants. This has made a lot of people a lot of money. Has it made good stories though? You're going to have to go and judge that for yourself. So the idea is, for the minimal viable product, you write something that is minimally viable, something that is just good enough. You don't do what I do. You don't spend 4 years working on a book, okay? That's not how you make a lot of money. This should just be called the Rag on JJ podcast. Hi, I'm JJ. I'm an idiot. Don't do what I do. Anyway, so yeah, that's the minimal viable product. The next one is right to market. You don't write what you want. You write what the established market wants. So that's a very easy to understand idea. And like, it's so shockingly obvious. You just feel like an idiot when like, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You have a market and they want something. If you go and write something else, they're not going to want it. So why are you writing it and trying to sell it to them? They're not going to buy it. Like, everyone does it. Every artist sort of has this idea like, oh yeah, like I like this. And there's just no market for it. I know a lot of people who've done that. Yeah, it's a bit of a wake-up call. So yeah, I fully understand that this entire podcast is basically me admitting that I'm selling out and joining the problem instead of trying to be part of the solution. So, you know, again, at least I'm honest about it. But I keep thinking about it, and my main takeaway is like, takeaway. Wait, I haven't made the joke yet. So my main point is that, like, if you work at McDonald's, see, there was a takeaway joke there, but I fucked it up. Anyway, why would you be trying to make like gourmet dishes if you're just a fry cook at McDonald's? That's not what people want when they go to McDonald's. I don't think people go to like the indie market for like highbrow stories. They're not there for that. You know, you've got Trad Pop for that sort of stuff. The indie market sort of seems to be like where the more niche sort of stories sort of flourish. And yeah, most of it's slop. It's just made hard and fast. It's fast food of the book world. So if you're trying to make like a gourmet dish at McDonald's, like I have done with my previous novels, you're not going to find a whole lot of success there. But in saying that, I will keep doing all my artistic stuff that I'm actually proud of. Oof, that last book. That prepper book. I'm not even sure I'll put my real name on it. Gotta stop laughing. Anyway, yeah. So I'll keep writing the artistic stuff that I'm really proud of, and I'll put my name on, and I'll talk about for as long as people want. But at the same time, I feel like I should be able to write this prepper story stuff and sort of like just write to market and just sell these people what they want. If it is as bad as I say it is, I should be able to do it. Like, that's always a thing. There's always some idiot out there who's got his head up his ass and is like, oh, I could totally do this. These people are idiots. And then he can't do it. Like I don't want to be that guy. So, like, I need to be able to do this. It's a point of pride for me. I have to be able to show that I can do this. There's an episode of Stargate SG-1 where I'm pretty sure they're called, like, Atlanteans. No, that's the other ones. Asgardians, the little grey aliens. They're fighting replicators, these tiny, like, robots that just replicate themselves. The Asgardians are too smart, so they can't think of a solution. So they need to go to the humans and they're like, you guys are dumb. Can you help us beat this? Because we can't think of a solution. We're too smart. And the humans actually help them and they win. And like, thanks humans. It's all thanks to your dumb idea. Yeah, I don't want to be that guy. But yeah, so that was basically a long-winded roundabout way with a lot of detours of me saying that don't think of me condemning these books is the same as me condemning the authors or like the skill or the work ethic that they put into these books. Because like, again, they've made bank, they've done well, they've found success. I want that, so I am following them. But if you're one of the authors of the books I've made fun of, I'm sorry if I hurt your fee-fees, but I want some of what you've got, okay? That's where we're at. Again, my last book compared to the upcoming book are worlds apart in terms of quality. But yeah, let's just wait and see which one sells better first. Okay, this next part of my rant is going to be called Subtext and Stories. Now, I have to preface this with the fact that my wife is Taiwanese and our daughter is obviously mixed. So yeah, if you've got like a hysterical bent, please try and keep your shit together because yeah, if I say anything that upsets you, I probably didn't mean it. So I alluded to this earlier, but 28 years later, like the series as a whole, there's some very interesting analyses of what it's about. Again, interesting, finger quotes. If you've only seen the latest film, you might notice that like all the human or like non-infected characters, they're all white. Yeah, we're talking about race, so strap yourselves in. So I don't actually have a problem with all the characters in this show being white. Like the outbreak happened in like 2002, and it's been like 28 years since then, and like nobody's allowed into the island. So like the vast majority of the characters are all going to be white. Like it makes sense. I've always said, you wanted like Black Panther movie, like everyone's African, cool. Okay, it's a secret nation in the middle of Africa. Okay, cool. They're all black, fine, whatever. If you have like a story set in Australia, like pre-colonial era, yeah, you're not going to have any white people there. That's fine. It makes sense. That's what the movie is. So here, it's fine. Okay, there might be some somewhere. They might have died. Who knows? I don't care. It's not a major point. But the point is, all the bloated infected in this movie, they sort of crawl around, they sneak up on people, they eat worms, like they're sucking worms out of the ground. They're all Asian. And nothing ever sort of comes of it. It's like, why? Like, what was the point of that? Like, I don't know. And like the big bad alpha, the lead zombie sort of thing, he's like the only other like non-white character. And he's the only alpha in the movie that survives. And like, he's like, if anyone talks about the big dick scene in 28 years later, yeah, it's the big black guy. So it's like, okay, so the fat bloated ones that crawl around and the little girl one runs away, they're all Asian. And the big bad giant dick guy is black, or like some shade of black. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble for that one. People notice that sort of stuff. Like, even if you're not trying to say something with it, people notice it. And they start to ask questions. Why are all the survivors white? Why are all the fat zombies Asian? Why is the giant big dick surviving zombie? Why is he black? Like, people sort of pick up on that. So this is sort of what I'm getting at with subtext, because I've noticed this a lot in post-apocalyptic stories. So in the film Bird Box, there are these invisible entities that sort of drive you insane and get you to kill people, or yourself, probably both. Now, in this film, Sandra Bullock is the lead, and she's the only decent white character in the film. Like every other white character is either weak, evil, or an arsehole. And it's all the minority characters that get to be the heroes, while all the like whites flop around and do stupid shit. The male lead is this just stupidly handsome black guy. Seriously, go check out the casting of Bird Box. Like that guy's like a god. But like, yeah, he's called Tom, which is of all the things you could have called him. Anyway, yeah, everyone else goes crazy when they see an entity. He sees one and he manages to kill himself. Everyone else breaks and goes evil. But like this one black guy is like, no, and just kills himself. So even when he sort of fails, he still manages to go out like a hero. So again, I like that film. I thought it was a good film. But like, you're like, huh, okay, I picked up on a few things there. They had, oh God, John Malkovich. He's like a Trump supporter with like a Trump hat. I think he yells out like MAGA country or like let's make America great again or something, while everyone's killing themselves and slaughtering people. Again, the subtext is not very subtle there, but it's like he dies, obviously. People notice that sort of stuff. Now, the film A Quiet Place is the total opposite. It's set in rural America. Okay, so again, like most people are white in that movie. Okay, cool, fine, whatever. Now, I don't think they thought it would be as successful as it was, because they had to get like a sequel, and they're like, oh God, we can't just have all white people again. So the main guy dies at the end of the first movie. So they sort of set up this prequel scene at the start where he's like walking through town, and he's like the guy, again, finger quotes. Like everyone knows him, everyone respects him. Like he's got enough like standing in the town that he can walk up to a cop and be like, what's the situation, while the town is being like evacuated. And the cop's black, obviously that's a key point here. Like, and the cop actually answers him. He's like, oh, you know, something's gone on, we've got to get everyone out of here. And then like one of the aliens invades, and like well, the invasion has already started. One of the aliens jumps out and just like destroys the cop car. And like the main character, he doesn't give this cop like a second thought. He just turns and just runs. Like, it's the funniest thing. Like, if you get a chance, check out A Quiet Place 2, and then just check out the opening scene and just see how quickly he runs. Like, it's set up as though he's friends with this cop, but the second this alien attacks, he just bails. Like, it's not even like an afterthought. You see the cop like a few scenes later, and like he puts up like a pretty good fight, but he gets taken out. Again, like it's not even a thing. Again, that's a film where maybe they intentionally made everyone white for good reasons or bad reasons. I don't know. But it's sort of something where you're like, huh, not a lot of diversity there. Do I think anything of that? I don't know. Okay, at this point, I have to assure you, there is a point to this, and I will get us there. Please just stay in your seats. Trust me, and I'll bring this home. So this sort of thing doesn't always happen with intent, let alone ill intent. if you think about a really common cliche from back in the day, it was the whole the black guy dies first thing. So that happened often enough that people started to notice it, and you can't really do it anymore. Like if you think about the character of Darwin in X-Men First Class, the one black guy on the team and he dies first, like it's ridiculous. Like, well, first of all, he's Darwin. His whole ability is that he adapts to any sort of attack and he survives it, and then he dies first. Like, it's just dumb. But the point is, people sort of kicked up a fuss. They're like, hey, the one black guy died. Why? Now, did they make Darwin black because he's going to get killed off first? Or is the one role that the black guy got just sort of bad luck and he dies first? I don't know. There could be some, like, backroom fuckery going on there. I don't know. But the point is, like, the whole black guy dying first thing, I could reasonably see this happening because if you've got, like, casting for a film, you've got your white male lead in, like, action films or whatever. That's your draw card for the main audience, which is, like, Western males. You've got the girlfriend or wife. You can't have her be black because everyone's going to have problems for various reasons across the spectrum. You can't have the bad guy be black because then you're demonizing black guys. So what do? If you want to get some diversity in there, you make the black guy the best friend. Now, in most of these stories, the best friend is the character who dies because it's a way to sort of like motivate the character, get some emotion in there, and it drives the plot forward. Now, if you're just trying to get some diversity in and like that's the only spot, you've got like two choices. What do? Not get diversity in there or have the black guy in a role that gets him killed off. Like it can sort of seem like a nothing issue, especially for like your project. But when taken into account of the fact that like every project is doing this, that's being released to like the public, that's when everyone sort of starts to notice. Now, do I know that's the reason that this happened that way so often? No, I don't. But like it's an easy enough like explanation for me to hand wave it away. But in saying that, I think we all know some movies in recent years where we're pretty sure there's been some casting fuckery going on behind the scenes in the opposite direction, that we're sort of open to the idea that like there was probably some back room where a bunch of white dudes smoking cigars are just plotting how to give the next dying role to the black guy. So the point of all this is that you can't always tell the reason that something is happening the way it is in a story, but that you do tend to notice when certain things line up. Like humans are very good at like pattern recognition, like sometimes, troublingly so. Like enough black sidekicks get killed off, people start to notice. It's not any one particular film's fault. It's the trend in general, but like you still notice it. All fathers in TV shows are fat and stupid, you notice. All the bad guys are white, you notice. All the white girls have boyfriends that are black, you notice. Asian men are never in the lead, you notice. All the female characters are perfect and they're always lecturing the men, you notice. People pick up on these patterns even though no one particular show or film is doing it potentially, intentionally. So to tie all this back to prepper fiction, I've noticed that there are very, very few minority characters in these stories. And I guess you could say that maybe it's because the prepper author just hates so-and-so group or whatever. Or maybe you could say that it's because they know their target audience and they want them to be able to relate to all the characters more easily. I don't know. I grew up in Australia, so my home is a very multicultural place. It's a settler society. We've got people from all over the world. I know America is as well, but are all places equally diverse as others? Like I imagine New York City or LA are quite diverse and a lot more diverse than say like Middle America. If that's where your target audience is, showing the diversity of New York in Middle America is not going to sort of ring true with them. So I can see this causing issues with the readers, but at the same time, as an outsider looking in, if all the characters in a book are white, that's kind of a problem. Just as a side note and a point of proof, my last book, The Land of Long Shadows, that's set in a sort of fictionalized version of Taiwan. And while there are basically fictionalized Americans in it, a lot of people had trouble getting into the book because there's not a setting that is instantly recognizable to them, which is something I knew going in. It's basically a foreign film in book form. Now, not everyone is going to get it, so you have to be careful if you do choose to stray from what your target audience wants and is comfortable with, because if you don't give them what they want, they're not going to like it. So, To bring all this back to my point here, these archetypal characters and situations are an easy shorthand to convey meaning. But even if you're writing something without the intent to typecast, You might fall into it accidentally. Alongside this, your project is going to be held up alongside other projects in the same genre, and they'll be taken together. And so even though you yourself didn't do anything overtly wrong in your work, it might be lumped alongside a bunch of others who've done the same thing and used as evidence of bias or intent or whatever. Guilt by association. And then you're the one getting stereotyped, which is kind of like typecasting. Now, the easiest example I've got from the prepper genre is poor people. From what I've seen so far, the logical assumption is that those people who are closest to you, but who are also strangers, and are the ones with the fewer supplies and who are most reliant on the current system for support, they're going to be the ones who are the most desperate when the current system collapses. So it sort of makes sense. I can see the argument, but it has made sense enough times for enough authors that it's become sort of like a negative stereotype and a trope in and of itself. Now, you might just hate poor people or some other group or whatever, so you're casting them as the antagonists in your book on purpose. This is going to sound bad, but I've done that as well. Like, I'm not a particularly big fan of communists. I lived in Taiwan. There's a gigantic communist threat there that's threatening to invade all the time. Also, I had to work with an actual communist from Australia, and this dude acted all high and mighty, but he ended up being just a piece of shit. Like, I'm not a fan of the ideology. So, that's why I cast them as the bad guys in The Land of Long Shadows. Book 2 will have the fascists as the main bad guys. I'm getting there. Don't at me. This shit takes time to write, okay? In my other book, Days Too Dark, I had a group of cultist Christians who were basically the Klan, because religions suck a lot of the time. And honestly, there weren't enough followers of any other religion in Brisbane in 2011 to warrant them being a faction. But I also had like a cruise liner full of elitist assholes who funded raider gangs to go steal stuff for them. And there's an isolationist and xenophobic enclave of Asians. But I didn't do that last one just for shits and giggles. Because if you ask anyone from Brisbane to guess what suburb they're in, they'll know, because they're actually there. They weren't demonized in the narrative or anything, but everyone knew to stay the fuck away from them because they were dangerous. Maybe they'll play a bigger role in the sequel, or the spin-offs, who knows? Ooh, they will. So yeah, a side note of a tangent. Hopefully it's clear by now that I'm not on any particular side. I'm not like on this side or that side, their side or your side. I'm like the old beware of artists poster. I can handle dealing with anyone from any walk of life as long as I've got some baseline level of normal going on, but I'm not going to get roped into serving any cause. With that in mind, I will throw anyone or any group under the bus if it serves the plot I'm working on. Story first, always. To bring all this to a close, typecasting is just a narrative tool. It's a quick and easy shorthand to convey something, and if you use it correctly, it can add to a story. If you want to resonate with a particular audience, are you going to demonize them or glorify them? And if you need to demonize someone, who are you going to choose? I can see the logic behind this choice that people have to make, especially on the level of an individual author. It's only when you take it to the genre level as a whole that these choices start to form a pattern. So it's arguable that no one particular author is intentionally at fault here. In saying all that though, if little Jimmy the author has been banging away on the same drum for the past 50 books, people will start to notice that too. So yeah, that's the end of my rant on racism. I guess my general rule is don't be a dick about things that people can't control. If they can control it, then yeah, be a big as dick as you want. I thought about doing the whole I'm not a racist rain dance here, but it's 2025 and I don't think anyone gives a shit anymore. Okay, this next section is considerations we need to take into account when thinking about all these books that I've been reviewing. The first is time. Obviously, a book that has been out for a long time will have had more chances to sell copies than a book that has only been out for a short while. The next is advertising. We don't know how much has been spent on advertising for any of these books. You can have a great book that nobody sees, or a mediocre book that the entire established audience sees. Which one do you think is going to sell more copies? The next one is the established audience base. A lot of these books are being sold into pre-established reader bases, not just the already defined market, but the author's actual reader base. If you've got a bunch of books in your niche and people know what you write, they're more likely to try your next book. So a lot of these authors have already got dedicated followings, and that sort of skews things a bit. There's cross-promotion. Beyond your own audience, you've got author friends who write in the same genre. They can cross-promote your stuff, and vice versa. It's not as good as, directly to your own audience, but being vouched for by someone you respect or someone an audience respects, that can go a long way. So, this is the last one, and this is more of a question, really. One I don't really have an answer to at the moment. Does this audience even want quality, or are they looking for something else? I feel like quality in terms of writing isn't that high in the hierarchy of requirements for this audience. So what's at the top of the pyramid of want here? At this point, I'm going to make a semi-educated stab in the dark and say that it's validation for their prepper lifestyle, but I can't be sure. I could say that it's a desire to see the current world order end and a return to the old ways of doing things, but the variety of ends the audience accepts seems too narrow for that. They'll take EMP, CME, pandemic, ice age. They're all too specific and potentially viable. I still think it's the validation, but I'm only 5 books in, so we'll have to wait and see. Okay, and coming out of left field is my stance on AI. I'm sticking it here because I can't figure out where else to put it. That's what she said. So, AI, I use it for research. It's really good at gathering and collating data, and it can streamline a lot of the backhouse tasks, but I never use it to create an end product. I save that for me. That's my stuff. I think if you want to use AI, I'm not going to lose my shit over it. I think it's really annoying when people just have like a soapbox conniption about it, and they just don't shut up about it. But at the same time, using it does sort of diminish your end creation. Like, I can't deny that. There's also this element of AI where people are able to go too far with it, especially in terms of artwork. So, I bought a role-playing game recently, Gamma Dark, and it's just full of AI art. But there was just so much of it that it all just sort of felt pointless. When I made my book, Days Too Dark, I had to be very, very picky with which artists I commissioned and which pieces of art I wanted included, because although I had like a decent budget, it wasn't endless. But that constraint forced me to be picky and only put in the best and most integral pieces of artwork. People who use AI, they don't have that constraint, and so they can just throw everything in, which can ruin a project. Also, I've said this on another podcast a few years back now. I can never see myself wanting to talk shop with an AI author. There's not going to be that same level of industry respect or interest when it's AI doing all the work. I'm never going to be like, what prompt did you use to get this totally non-generic sentence? No. I love talking to other authors about craft stuff, but an AI author? No. So, in saying all that, I do think it's coming though. Big companies like Bethesda are already using it, which is kind of funny. First they buy Fallout, they water it down for the mass audience, and then they just jump ship and let AI do the artwork. If anyone doesn't have an argument for using AI, it's a massive video game company that's owned by Microsoft. Come on, guys. So yeah, just for me personally, you can do whatever you want. I don't care about that. But for me, I'm still an author. I will always be telling stories, and I don't want to be handing that off to a machine. If anything, I'm hoping this podcast is proof enough that I'm willing to do the legwork before I go off and do the actual work all by myself. So, in closing, I'm 5 books into my original 10, and I have to say that it's not been great so far. It's been informative, but in a kind of liberal arts degree kind of informative. I have one, shut up. I'm learning, but I'm questioning the value of what I'm learning. It's not all bad though. As always, I'm comforted by the fact that I can just jump ship into fantasy whenever I want. This is already a pretty big departure from the stuff that I want to write. Pivoting over to fantasy isn't that big of a deal. It's not that different to this. So yeah. Anyway, on that cheery note, I'm going to sign off. Remember to like, share, subscribe so you can enjoy the fruits of my labors in the prepper fiction scene. Until next time, take it easy.